This is the Ross Kaminsky Show. Now, Ross Kaminsky on Denver's talk station, 630 KHOW.
You know, I was reading the Washington Post, the Denver Post the other day, although who can tell the difference these days because so many Denver Post articles are Washington Post articles. And there's a piece there by my friend and KHOW colleague Jon Caldara, who's always a good writer. I always enjoy reading Jon's columns. But this particular one really, I don't know if moving is the right word, but this was intense, let's say. This was a very intense column by Jon. And the headline, although Jon probably didn't write the headline, but still, the headline is, "On January 1st, I become a criminal for doing nothing." Joining us to talk about how he is a criminal other than just for being not politically correct in Boulder is the man himself, Jon Caldara. Jon, good morning. Good to talk to you from Boulder County Jail. How are you?
I'm terrific, Ross. How are you? Welcome back, by the way.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so you're not in jail, but
No, not yet. And I got to tell you, it's nerve-wracking because honestly, I don't want to go to jail. You know, it was one of these things where, like, I am thinking potentially 1,000, maybe 2,000 fellow Boulderites who are now in violation of what I believe to be just a hateful, bigoted law. Is, we're living in the shadows, and my decision whether or not to come forward and self-identify to the police, put myself out for investigation, bring my politically incorrect but legal firearm for inspection, have to pay to get investigated again for a background check, and then to have to pay for a permission slip just so that I can continue to own something that I already legally own. I find it hateful, and I find it disturbing. There was no way that I was going to comply with this new law. But like so many other people, the question is, do I break the law quietly, or do I break the law publicly? And I figured, given who I am, I better use this opportunity. I'm not looking forward to this. I really am not. I've got kids who are at sensitive ages. I have a handicapped son who needs me every day, and I got to tell you, I'm nervous. But the real point of this is how remarkably intolerant the tolerant progressives are. That you've lived close enough to Boulder, you know how they drip this smug tolerance. When you go to the rec center, when you go to the library, when you go to the kids' school, there are posters everywhere talking about how tolerant they are and how they accept alternative lifestyles. Except they don't accept my alternative lifestyle. And I need to admit, at this point, what was a mainstream lifestyle is now an alternative lifestyle. I've got firearms they find scary. And because of that, and because of my strong identification with the Second Amendment, they want me to self-identify. And I'm thinking, if I owned a Koran, or if wore a certain type of headdress, or had a certain sexual identity, or thought I was a different gender, they would bend over backward to welcome me into this community. But if anything, I just want them to stop denying their massive intolerance for this alternative lifestyle, which is a love of the Second Amendment. Yeah, I was thinking about you the other day.
Yeah.
When we used to get together back when you had no life at all, we'd get together and grab breakfast and things, and you used to wear this T-shirt all the time because you had no wardrobe, and it said "Celebrate Diversity," and it was tongue in cheek, and it had all these different types of firearms on it, and it was, and I know you did it just to kind of thumb people's nose in it, but it really is true that we people who believe in the Second Amendment need to stand up and demand the same acceptance, the same tolerance that they have given to other groups. You remember in the 80s when there were social conservatives who wanted people with AIDS to be registered because they were a danger to society. That's what these people are doing now to folks like you and me. And if you think it's only Boulder, you're wrong. It's coming to a neighborhood near you.
Yeah, I think it is too. And, so I lived in Boulder County, as you well know. You were at my house up in Nederland. And I always found the comparison.
Oh, more times than you thought.
It's an inside joke, folks. So I'm up there in Nederland, and I always had this very vivid comparison between Nederland and Boulder, even though they're very close to each other. Nederland is sort of the hippie libertarian wing of leftist, where they want no war, and they want their marijuana before other people wanted it and all that. But basically, they left you alone. It was live and let live. In Boulder, if you don't agree with them, it's not just that you're wrong, but you're bad. I mean, really bad. And I don't think if anything, I'm understating it, the way that they treat people like you and me.
You are understating it. Boulder used to be like Nederland, basically. It was hippy-dippy weird. When I moved to Boulder in the 80s, it was a freaky liberal town, but it was a live and let live town.
Mm-hmm.
It was home to the Naropa Institute, which is a Buddhist beatnik college,
mm-hmm.
and it was home to Soldier of Fortune magazine and Paladin Press, which did all the books on how to turn your spatula into an atomic weapon, and that was true tolerance. And what progressives seem to forget is that tolerance means tolerating things you find ugly or perverse. I don't like people burning the American flag. I think it is disrespectful and wrong. That being said, I'm not going to stop you from doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I find people who smoke, I think it's a bad habit, but I'm not going to stop you from doing it. You want to legalize weed and other drugs? You know what? I'm not going to use them, but I will permit it. You and I are the perverts of today. We have a perversion because we have an attachment to our guns, and people think us people think us small-minded, that we cling to our religion and guns. And you know what? I don't care what you think. Just let me be. Instead, I am facing 90 days in jail, $1,000 fine per offense, having my weapons confiscated and destroyed because I refuse to comply with this bigoted, hateful law. I dare Boulder to treat any other alternative lifestyle in their city the way they are treating you and I.
Let's take a quick step back here,
Yeah.
just in case there are folks listening who don't know really what we're talking about. We've kind of implied a lot of it here.
Yes,
but
good
what
point.
exactly did Boulder do? How did we get here? Just tell the story very briefly.
A new anti-gun majority came onto the Boulder City Council and decided it was time to do something about the, horrific gun crime that is riddling the streets of Boulder, because, Chicago and Boulder have the exact same gun crime rate.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a joke if you don't know it. And so they've decided to outlaw what they think are assault weapons. Of course, when you start to try to define what an assault weapon is, you get into the definition of pornography problems. So what have they outlawed? They have outlawed anything with a folding stock, a pistol grip, a removable magazine, because apparently guns don't kill people, pistol grips kill people. And for those of us, so you can no longer buy any of those products. So if you have an AR-15 or any variation of that, you can no longer buy it. But if you have one, they gratefully have grandfathered us in, but you have to self-identify. So imagine if they did this for people who are transgendered or Muslim or any other lifestyle that some people find very objectionable. You need to go to the police by the end of last year and say, "Here I am, world. Please investigate me." You have to pay taxes, then fees. You pay a fee in order to keep what you already have, and you need to have a permission slip. Mind you, this is no different than, and people will think this is a ridiculous comparison, but I'm going to go with it. It's like Stonewall when the police raided a gay bar in the 60s in the Village in New York City. Really, what it was to keep people from associating, gay people from associating. Now, if you go to the range with your AR-15, will the police there, because police go to the range all the time as well, will they start hassling you? Will you need to have your permission slip with you? If you don't, will you be arrested? Will your gun be confiscated? Really, what this is not just about the Second Amendment. It's about our First Amendment right to freely associate, and that's being attacked as well.
So let me take a different angle on this while keeping on the same subject. And for those of you just joining us, my special guest is my friend and my KHOW colleague, Jon Caldara, president of the Independence Institute, fighter for freedom, hosts his own show here on KHOW on Sunday evenings from 5 p.m. to 8 p.m. I got an email, this is mid-late December, from Greg Testa, the chief of police in Boulder, asking him some questions about this stuff, and he said there's a lawsuit going on. You know, I assume you're the lead plaintiff there, and we'll talk about that in a minute. He said, and again, this was dated December 19th, to date, 248 firearms had been certified. The process ends December 31st. And then this is the part I wanted to mention to you. He says, enforcement regarding this ordinance or any other ordinance or law is based on constitutional law. Additionally, officers use discretion in their enforcement actions and take into account the totality of the circumstances they are dealing with when deciding to give a warning or write a summons. And my reaction was, I've seen officer discretion work both ways, right? I've seen officers let people off with a warning who were certainly guilty of, like, thinking traffic infraction, right? And I've seen officers write tickets when I thought any reasonable person wouldn't have. What do you make of what I just read to you?
Let me first say this. I feel so sorry for our friends in blue on this. They are some of the most true blue Americans who fight for our Second Amendment rights. The guy on the beat almost overwhelmingly is pro Second Amendment.
Yeah.
I mean, could you imagine being the cop that gets the order, hey, go over to Caldara's house. Here's the warrant. You're going to need to arrest him in front of his kids. We'll search his house and get, since he's made it very clear he's breaking the law, we'll find the gun that he has. Do you want to be that cop? I mean,
no, for a whole bunch of reasons I don't. Not just
yeah,
that
for
I
a whole
feel
bunch
bad,
of reasons,
right? But what if it's not Jon Caldara? What if it's John Doe, and you don't know if John Doe is going to be super pissed off?
Right.
You know?
Right. Well, and also, as you say, discretionary laws are open for abuse, and those people who are listening to us, Ross, need to realize there are about 8 other towns in Colorado who are waiting to see what happens with the lawsuits, or 2 different lawsuits that are going on here. Because as soon as those are solved, if there is a constitutional, if these are legal, you're going to see these gun grabs going throughout the state. And so while Boulder might be lenient on this because the cops don't want to enforce it, over time, where does this go? And I'm not thinking about this now. I'm thinking about what is this going to be in 50 years in the state and the country that I love. Yeah. The guns that I have now, I enjoy shooting with my daughter. She's going to get these guns. I'm giving her my guns. I can't take them with me. I'm going to give them to her throughout her life. But I won't be able to on certain guns. And I'm going to turn my daughter into a criminal as well.
All right, so we got about 3 minutes, Jon. Can you give us some, what exactly are you arguing in your lawsuit? Are you the lead plaintiff in at least one of them?
I am in the lead plaintiff in one of them. There are 2 lawsuits, one on a federal level, one on a state level. The state level one has to do with, does the city have the state right to do this, or does the state preemption ban this? Mm-hmm. By the way, they've also banned any magazine over 10 rounds, and I have several magazines over 10 rounds. Mm-hmm. So that makes all of us in Boulder, who knows how many criminals are in Boulder. The second one is a larger suit that we're going to pursue in federal court, which is to get to the heart of this issue in the Heller decision, which said guns are legal for individuals to own. And Scalia said, Justice Scalia said, what guns are those? Those are the guns that are common in usage at the time. There is no gun more common than an AR-15. That is the sporting rifle of choice for every American. It is, next to the old Colt 45, it is as American a weapon as you're going to get. And so we want to see if government really does have a right to tell me I can't own what I need to own. Yeah,
and I think it's a close call as to how if it got to the Supreme Court. I think I can imagine it being 5-4 either way. And I own, in terms of AR style guns, I own 3 in 3 different calibers. So I'm with you.
Right.
They're just so much fun.
And wherever you live now, Ross, I know you're in a bunker someplace and you never let me know anymore. But it's coming to you too. So the big point I'd like to make is we gun owners need to change this narrative. Instead of saying out of our cold dead hands, we need to make it clear we will not be treated as perversions. We want the same alternative lifestyle protections you progressives keep giving everyone else. We want to hold the left to their own standards and see if they're strong enough to do that.
John, I think we're going to make that the last word. I'm grateful for what you're doing.
And I'm grateful for everything you do, Ross, as well. It's you understand this stuff, and it's an important voice you have.
I want everybody to go read John's piece at the Denver Post. It's entitled, "On January 1st, I Become a Criminal for Doing Nothing," because John and I can and do spend a lot of time talking about policy and law and all that. But John spent some time during this conversation and a lot in his article talking about the potential impact on his family, which is something I think people haven't thought enough about, and the leverage that government has to make us do something that many of us think is unconstitutional. I got to leave it there. John, thanks so much for being here.
Ross, thank you.
All right, everyone listen to John Sunday evenings here on KHOW. I'll be right back. If you want to react to John, call me, 303-713-TALK.
This report is sponsored by Blue Emu.
Highway's in pretty good shape this morning.